Hello, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about Odyn. He wasn't too happy about the events of the last video, so maybe he's going to do something about it. Or maybe he won't. Maybe he's an emotionally secure person. Nah, he's definitely going to do something about it. So let's go! Odyn sat sulking in the halls of Ulduar. He was still pretty angry that the other keepers had ignored him. He's prime bloody designate, so he should be in charge. Odyn believed with all his heart that the dragon aspects would fail to safeguard Azeroth, and it was only a matter of time. Dirty, filthy proto-dragons coming over here, stealing keepers' jobs. So he decided to take matters into his own hands. He'd create an elite army that would be charged with protecting Azeroth. You ever heard that expression, too many cooks? I'm pretty sure the expression means things can go wrong when you have too many people doing the same job. I guess Odyn thinks the expression is, you can never have enough cooks in the kitchen, so get in the kitchen and make me a sandwich, bitch. To fill the ranks of his elite army, he'd looked to the Vrykul. He'd always admired their innate courage and strength. Above all other Titanforged, he viewed them as the perfect embodiment of the warrior spirit. Tyr and the other keepers arrived and demanded that Odyn abandon this foolish plan. But every time they spoke, he'd just interrupt them by saying, prime bloody designate. It also got really awkward at one point. The keepers had obviously been quite clear that they didn't like this plan and believed Odyn shouldn't do it, but that didn't stop him from asking them if they'd like to help. A lot of the keepers at this moment realised it was entirely possible that Odyn was having some kind of breakdown. One of them said, what was all that about? So Odyn left. He'd do it himself. He secured a wing of Ulduar to act as his new army's base. He needed to permanently separate it from the rest of the fortress and the other keepers though. So he summoned his favourite person, the sorceress Helya. Helya encased the stronghold with a great spell, and by focusing all of her power, she ripped the colossal chunk of Ulduar from the earth and lifted it into the cloudy skies. This floating citadel would become known as the Halls of Valor. From his new floating fortress, Odyn bellowed out a proclamation. Those who proved their bravery by dying glorious deaths in battle would live again in the Halls of Valor. Their spirits would be transported to the fortress and given mighty new Stormforged bodies. These champions, these Val'kyr, would serve as Azeroth's foremost guardians. Their deeds would live on in the hearts of all Titanforged forever. I like to imagine there was an awkward silence for a short period at first. The Vrykul were waiting to see if Odyn had finished saying the longest proclamation ever made, or whether he was just taking a breath before he continued for another 6 paragraphs. Once they were sure that he'd finished talking, they were all like, whoa! All that remained was to find the means of ferrying the spirits of the dead to the Halls of Valor. For this, Odyn studied the energies that permeated the Shadowlands. The knowledge he gained would allow him to transform some Vrykul into spectral beings called Val'kyr. These wraith-like servants would travel between the Shadowlands and the physical world, guiding worthy Vrykul souls to the Halls of Valor. One problem though. Val'kyr would be cursed to live as phantom beings forever. So as you can imagine, the Vrykul weren't exactly queuing up to become one. I know hindsight's 20/20, but maybe Odyn shouldn't have made his proclamation of, if you're worthy, I've made a heaven where everything's great and you'll love it first, and then ask them if they'd rather be a ghostly slave for all eternity that transports everyone else to the fun times party. Stupid jerk. Odyn decided he was going to have to create his Val'kyr servants by force. Helya didn't like this at all. She scolded Odyn for his willingness to turn Titanforged into slaves. The argument grew so heated, they almost started punching each other. In the end, Helya gave Odyn an ultimatum. Either don't do that, or I'm going to return the Halls of Valor to Ulduar. Is it just me, or does this sound like the magical fantasy world version of, if you don't shut up, I'm turning this car around, and then none of us get to go to Disneyland? Odyn saw this ultimatum and the disobedience as a threat, not only to his grand plan, but also to the future safety of Azeroth itself, so he punched her in the neck. Okay, he didn't specifically punch her in the neck, but he did strike out at her. He shattered her physical form and twisted her spirit into the first Val'kyr. This violent transformation would forever darken Helya, but her torment was not finished. Though she hated Odyn for what he'd done, she was compelled to obey his will. Under his command, she was sent to transform unwilling Vrykul into cursed Val'kyr. For ages after, Helya and the Val'kyr brought the souls of heroic Vrykul to the Halls of Valor. The citadel was full of storm-infused Val'kyr, with Odyn training and empowering each of these warriors. He felt no remorse for what he'd done. In his mind, everything was for the safety of Azeroth, and in honour of the great Pantheon. And we're leaving it there! I bet you weren't expecting that, were you? Sometimes the story behind the cartoony magical fantasy Warcraft world gets a bit dark, and I love it. A common recurring theme in the lore is that you're never quite sure who's good, who's bad. Maybe they start good, but maybe then they go bad. It's not just, now he's a mustache-twiddling villain for no reason. They always have some reason that you can kind of understand even if you don't agree with their actions, and that's good storytelling. If you enjoyed the video, give us the old thumbs up, talk to me in the comments. You can subscribe too if you want. It's all very much appreciated. Next video will be on Friday, and I have a feeling it's going to be a doozy. Plus, it might be a bit longer because it's a huge moment with a lot of stuff happening. So, I don't know if that's a good thing or not for you guys. But all that's left to say is thanks very much for watching, and see ya!